I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Next is public comment. We generally don't have any. Anybody to share off the agenda anymore. And approval of consent agenda. Has anybody had a chance to look at the minutes? And the calendar. Check. I'll take it. Did we pass the calendar around?
No, because Don normally does that, but here you go. And then we'll just, follow and told the other two, right? Don is coming in, I think, on the second, one of those days, because we have payroll, so he's gonna come in and deal with some checks. Mhm.
Sure you want the first one back in. Pick your day.
If you take the first three, John will take
I guess it's right here. Those days you want.
Was there any corrections or adjustments to the minutes of last meeting? And I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move that we approve the consent agenda.
Motion made second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
October 2019 financial report. Cheryl.
Well, we had a great run in October, which is what we're looking at here. It seems like ancient history, but boy, that's slow. But I think,
Hi, Tracy.
oh yeah.
You're not sitting behind your name tag.
I'm trying to stay out of that.
Just move your name tag.
No, go the other way.
Just move your name tag.
Now that I have the name tag, I should sit by it.
I'm gonna be down here.
Okay, so we had a big month in October. There's 369 patients in the hospital. Our average in the hospital is 326, so that's 43 above average. Big numbers in huge numbers. Yeah. ED, it saw a lot of people, and swing bed was another big leader there. Yep, 7 babies. Those don't count in this total, just so you know, but yes, a lot of babies. Yeah. Which is cool. Also, ancillaries were very, very busy. Lab was 650 above average. Radiology was 143 exams above average. Rehab was 220 visits above average. Home health is staying very busy. The health clinic is up 9%. Alturas is kind of dead even. The wellness clinic is down a bit.
But they did have on record new claims. So in the hospital, we call them patients. In the mental health world or in the wellness center, they're called clients. And they had a record number of new claims.
Like 50, but that was maybe November? Was it? Okay.
In previous winters, have we seen an increase?
In mental health services?
We have
That's a good
winter.
question. That's something we can look into. I don't know the answer to that.
This is our second or third winter. Yeah, third.
We took over in 2016. Understand that we went from having about 6 or 7 employees to having close to 25. So you would
It's changed
expect,
that much in 16?
and we are still struggling to meet the demand. So one of the things that happens is, as we provide more, we make it available to deliver care, more people will access that. That's a good thing, because we're providing service that people really need.
And confidence in the program probably elevated quite a bit too, while I was being administered by the county, went through different mental health staff, and there was less confidence in that setting. So, applaud the hospital for providing very good service.
Thank you. I think part of that is the perception of privacy. Not everybody wants to be known that they're going to see somebody for some mental health issues. And so we work very hard to try and keep people's privacy, that being well known. Another thing is locations so that it keeps privacy. So we do a lot of things to try and make it as safe for people to access care as we can. And that's an important thing to do.
Okay, we had gross charges of $4,093,000 for the month.
Is that a record of all times?
Yes, it is. Bringing our average up to 3.6 million, which is 400,000 higher than last year. So yeah, it was a big month. Collections on AR in October were $1.8 million, and they are $2 million in November. Typically, November is a slow month.
For collections?
Yeah, and December is a slow month. It's like everyone takes vacation or something, and then we have a big bounce back in January. And so I'm actually expecting a pretty big December. Because November and October were, I think, lower than they should have been. So, I've been wrong before, but that's what I'm doing. Our days in AR went up to 74 in October because of those lower collections. The last time we checked at the end of November, which I think was like today, they're at 64.5 or something like that. So 65. So that's kind of a function of really high sales and some rather big write-offs that we did. Our days cash on hand, 55 September, 53 in October. My estimate, and this is an estimate because there's data I won't have until we close November, is that it'll jump up to 69 because we did receive $1.4 million in tax money in November. So, and that's also typical to see November being a better month. Okay, this is our profit and loss for October, just for the month of October. The actual versus budget, the actual versus prior year, October 18. Our net operating revenue is $3.2 million, so that's $350,000 above what we budgeted, $600,000 better than we did last year. Our total expenses were just a little bit above budget. And we're at $240,000 higher than last year. Looking down to net gain, the net gain for the month of $440,000, $300,000 above our budgeted number of 111. So that brings, last year we had a pretty good October at 194, but we're still ahead by just the month of October by 245,000. So a very good October. And this is our year-to-date profit and loss, actual versus budget the prior year. Our net operating revenue to date, $11.3 million, just $213,000 below budget. And I know, if you've looked at your financials, you look at the surgery, the net surgery number is $1 million below budget. That means we've made up $800,000 elsewhere. So this is really a very good number. Last year at this time, we were $1.6 million ahead of where we were when we were a third of the way through our new year. So then going down to expenses, we're 10.6, but 294 less than budget, but 800,000 more than last year. Not really a surprise given the revenue. Total gain so far this year then is 559,000. We budgeted 445. We're ahead. Last year at this time we were down by 105,000, so we're $660,000 ahead where we were last year at this time.
Good thing.
It seems like a good thing, and I'm gonna go with that. Balance sheet. This is September, this is October this year, this is October of last year. Month to month, our cash is down. Our AR is up by almost 900,000. That's partly because we had such a huge sales month. Our assets are up a little bit because we are paying on the EMS building, and I didn't borrow any of that money till November. So our debt didn't go up, but our assets did. And that's pulling our cash down a little too. So because in November I borrowed $700,000 on the bond, and that's all against the building that we had previously paid for. So that's a good thing for us too. Okay, so do you have questions on the hospital?
How are we coming on the cash flow?
Fine.
Yes.
What's behind it? That's just the extra information. I had told you.
I didn't see it.
I told you before about, I think this is a really nifty chart that Cerner did. And it helps you do planning based on all of their historical go-lives, what you should expect from your AR. So these should be pretty good numbers to use for that. So.
Well, good. Question.
Okay, so moving on to Lakeview Gardens and Lake Medical Supply. Long-term care, they had 439 patient days. They've seen a drop in patients. This is equivalent to 14 people in beds. As of today, they're up to 18, so that's a good thing. I think we've got another one coming. Assisted living has also been seeing some drops in numbers, and they were at 11 at the end of October, and they're at 10 now. So even though we're seeing some declines year over year, we have 427 extra patient days collectively. We're still at this point, when you look at revenues are leveling off, but when you look at last year at this time, the ALF was just starting to grow. So we're still seeing the revenue kind of move from long-term care over to the ALF. So revenue in the ALF was 54,000 this year, it's 26 last year. Revenue,
Assisted living.
I'm sorry, yeah, assisted living facility, ALF. And then,
Not L.
L. And it's down in the long-term care facility. So, October, the month we had a net revenue of 187,000. Year to date, you see we're at 795, and last year we were at 797. So collectively, we're really close to where we were last year at this time. We actually have expenses are down by 100,000.
But is assisted living full now?
No, there's 10,
And full.
12.
It's it's not uncommon for people that are in the assisted living, to, as their health changes, they may go to the hospital, they may come back. They may go to the long-term care, they may come back. There's a change in how as their health changes. And so it's not uncommon for someone in the assisted living to, their care needs change, they get the right kind of care, and then they return.
But I know for previously we had a waiting list.
And we do. And so if someone is in the assisted living and needs to go into the hospital for some more care, we don't give away their bed. So that room may be set and they may be in the hospital for a couple of days, they may be in for a week, there may be some extenuating circumstances. We still don't give away their bed. And so that's, and it may be that they go to the hospital and then their care needs change. Now they have to go into long-term care. Once that decision is made, then we can go to our waiting list and say, are you ready to come in? So there will always be some fluctuation.
So the net loss for the month was $118,476 on the year, $100,000 better than last year. So because the expenses are coming down, the contract labor is less, which I don't know that's from an effort as much as it's just happenstance, but
It's a combination.
combination of things, yeah. Okay. And then Lake Medical Supply had kind of a slow month for revenue and a slightly higher month for expense, and so they had a loss of $3,740, which I really haven't dug into very deeply yet because it's very odd, but it'll usually lose it. But I will.
Down 20 grand.
Yeah, we had that one, we did do the transition into the Brightree software, which we did anticipate was gonna kind of shoot us in the foot, and it did.
But
And
we
then
should be through that.
we kind of saw it ride it back, and I don't think this is a Brightree thing, I think this might be more, expenses were high and cost of goods sold was a little high, and it might be that we bought a large sum of equipment, I didn't really look into it, but.
I believe that's the case. We have,
Yeah.
for our sleep lab program, and we've just hired, and we should be starting shortly,
Yeah.
another sleep lab tech. And our waiting list is through March of next year, is that correct?
Yes.
So it's a,
I assume he works nights.
all the time. And what typically happens is we do an outpatient. So people can have a test done before they actually have the full sleep lab test. And we had to buy the equipment because we were using them more. That we did buy those.
Right.
So that may have been part of the reason for the extra cost.
On the medical services, is it safe to assume that a large, not all, but a large percentage is of services to older generation, like oxygen?
Vast
It's the
majority.
vast majority of it is oxygen
And then
and oxygen-related, breathing-related issues.
is there any data showing how, well, for a long time, our population has always been very large on the upper older generation. And tend to lose ourselves after a while. Is there any graph showing a decline in percentage of senior citizens?
In fact, it appears that we're getting more of an older population in the county.
Still growing.
And if we want to encourage older people to retire and to move to Lake County, then we would want to continue to enhance the services we offer to seniors. It's a good demographic for rural communities.
That's it for me.
Did you want to say anything about the cash or?
Oh, the cost report or the, no, I don't know that I want to.
What about the
There's a
cost
lot
report?
of detail. Well, in case I guess you didn't know, the cost report did get done, and,
Remind me of the cost report is.
the cost report is an annual report that we file with Medicare that kind of reconciles the amount they paid us with what they figure they owed us. So a little bit like a tax return, but it's with Medicare and the cost report. So we do an annual one, and then we do a mid-year, either do a survey or a full cost report. But this was our annual one, and it was due on November 30th, and they did get it done on time, which is good because they cut you off right now if you don't get it done on time. And we are getting $623,000 back on it.
What did we get last year?
But I don't want you to think like that. Because so what happens with the cost report is, that makes it different from a tax return is Medicare says, oh, we underpaid you by $600,000. So now we're gonna pay you more for your RHC visits, we're gonna pay you more for your hospital visits. You really should come out net zero. So if you continue to grow and if you continue to add costs, then that look back is probably going to yield you some money.
Another way to think of it is this. If our costs were essentially stagnant, and one year we got paid a little bit too much, Medicare would take the money back the next year. They balance it.
And they lowered the rate that.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
So the reason we got additional money is because we proved that our expenses had gone up. Okay? And they were justifiable expenses for the Medicare population. This is not for the Medicaid population. They still use that information on our Medicaid process
And then
from
you,
the CCs.
you show us that money will actually arrive here in January. That's what I mean, the cash flow.
Yeah, it arrives when they send it, and it's usually within 30, 60 days, but you don't have any control over it. You know, it's Goliath.
So that's good news.
Yeah, it was great news.
So, and the audit from the Ripley firm, we don't have that set yet. We have tried to have the accountants present their findings, our audit, in the month of December. It is due, and the bank requires it, that the financial statement that we prepare for you each month is accurate, and that's what the audit does. It's been as late as February. We don't have a date yet when they're going to present.
We met with them today. We had a really great meeting with Leslie today,
We did.
and we totally think it's gonna be done by the end of December.
Oh, good. So in January, we will have a presentation. They will come and make a presentation to the board.
January meeting, board meeting.
I don't know if they'll make it by that. They might. Depends on how close they are to
Yeah.
finishing.
Yeah, he's a Hyatt partner in the firm. He travels a lot, so it sometimes is hard to get him on a day that works really great for us.
So we'll try to give you as much heads up as we can on that presentation.
Anything else? Construction.
So we have just a couple of updates on the construction issues. First, some cleanup, the clinic work. They worked on, they have a couple things that they're still trying to finish. On the door frames, if you recall, they ordered the door frames and they came in white and then they painted it gray because they're supposed to be gray. It didn't work, so they're having to replace many of the door frames. So what they're doing in The specialty clinic area is putting a sleeve around a portion of it in the main clinic for the rural health clinic, the main component that was remodeled. They're taking out the actual frame, the gray paint, it's a white frame that's been painted. They're doing that right now, and they hope to have it finished by Christmas. Have all the door frames taken out and new gray ones put in. So that should be done by Christmas. That's what their target is.
How many doorways were?
There was 36 total, and you can imagine this was not something that the contractor was happy about. So they're trying to resolve that. And they are fixing the way they're supposed to. Because we took occupancy a year ago. So we've been trying to make sure that all of our items under warranty are addressed. Second part that they're working on is when we built the Lakeview Gardens, the 3 cottages. And we've been in those cottages now 2.5 years. One of the things that we discovered, unbeknownst to us, is we started having some pipes freezing. And only happened during the winter, of course, and it doesn't make sense because it wasn't pipes against the walls. It was actually pipes inside the building. So the architects and the construction company came to a resolution. They're still figuring out who's going to pay for it. But the work will start within a week, and that should be completed, hopefully, by mid-January. And so they'll have a crew working up in the attic, dealing with those pipes. It's kind of a goofy thing, but
That's all covered under
it's all covered under the warranty, so that's being resolved. The other project that we're working on that's big is the EMS building. If you haven't seen it yet, the walls are all up. Almost all of the framing is completed. They're now putting in the electrical conduits. They're working on floor colorings and cabinets. They are still targeted to be completed. They said by the end of December, but it'll probably be the middle of January. I'm thinking positively, but expecting to be complete by the end of January. What will then have happen is the disaster unit will move in. They're going to do their portion, their painting. The contract did not include painting, so the disaster unit volunteers will be painting and bringing in furnishings and that kind of thing. So it's moving on schedule.
How many sleep accommodation would it have?
I believe it's 4 rooms, and they could put bunk beds. They'll probably put just regular beds, but they could put bunk beds in those rooms. Shower facilities. We originally had male, female, and I think they agreed that as long as the door is locked, it would not have 2 sets of showers, but rather 1 set of showers. And so unisex, but not together. So I believe that's the case. Any questions about that?
No, I was down to the game.
Oh yeah, they got a lot of work done. They don't have the roll-up doors yet, that'll happen. They don't have the heating turned on because it'll be geothermal heat. But they're getting close. Any questions about any of the construction that we might be doing with you?
Things based on the residents.
They were waiting on the dining room set was to arrive tomorrow, assuming that it got right. The house that we purchased across the street, if all goes well, we will have physicians staying in there. So we've been working on several physicians that we call as traveling physicians, could be other travelers, but right now, several physicians that travel.
How many could it accommodate at one time? 1, 2,
Well, it has 3 bedrooms. Well, when we finish, we'd be very happy to give you a tour of the facility so you can see what it looks like. Can't do it I don't know if we have pictures of the before, but you'll be pleased with the after.
I looked through windows before.
So it's coming along pretty well.
Medical staff update.
Since Dr. Hussey is not here today, and we were unable to have a quorum. Oh, that's it. It's correct. We did have a quorum, but we did not approve any privilege changes. So we don't have any that you need to approve.
I just had a couple things I was gonna mention. Cardiac rehab is progressing. Target date is in January now.
What's that, Teresa, what's that?
Cardiac rehab.
Oh,
We already have a couple patients on our list, so that's exciting that people are starting to find out and want to attend. And then, I don't think we've mentioned before, so we've had a program for a while that we teach what's called nonviolent crisis intervention to clinical staff. And that program is kind of mild in terms of preparing clinical staff to deal with violent patients. That's essentially the issue that we have to deal with. So we have a committee and we looked into a different type of training that's a little more, it's a little stronger, has more to offer. It's called Evade. It's the same training that we're seeing in a number of our facilities around us. But it's a little bit expensive and we have to train trainers. But luckily, we got a grant for $10,000 and the training group is going to come on site and train 5 people. So we have 5 people signed up to be trainers. So then we'll be.
is this training mostly nurses?
It's mostly nurses, but not necessarily only nurses. It has a portion of training that every employee in the hospital will get. It may be just online, and then there'll be longer and shorter classes depending on your particular job description. But we're excited about it because we think it'll help us feel more confident and help us move forward in knowing how to work as a team when we have violent patients. So
A lot of security guards will all have that training.
Have we filled those positions yet?
We have all but one position full. So we're providing the service, it's not completely, we're not delivering it fully yet, but very close.
On the cardio rehab, for the audience, not just for us, what did we do prior to and what does that entail, cardio rehab?
well, we really haven't offered that service.
Right.
So this will be a new service for us.
So we had to go out of town.
Well, unfortunately, it's something that you typically do for an hour 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so to travel for that makes it almost impossible. So most of our cardiac patients didn't have that option. We got a call this last week from a patient in Alturas that was looking to come here, and he has been going to Reno. So he's really highly motivated in his situation. So he's anxious for our program to start because that's not as far as Reno. So we'll just kind of see how that develops. But what it basically offers is, so you're exercising while you're on a cardiac monitor. So we're assuring that your heart stays safe, or if anything happens while you're exercising, which is a more vulnerable time than at rest.
Is it like on a treadmill or something?
Yeah, usually you use a variety of different pieces of equipment, and we're lucky that we already have pulmonary rehab and we already have a gym down there, so we can just use the same equipment, so it's less expensive in that regard. But the whole investment in the cardiac monitoring system was expensive. So we have that, and we have a nurse hired, and now we need the exercise component or an exercise physiologist, and then there'll be 2 people present during these monitored exercise sessions. And in addition to that, we'll offer education in lifestyle modifications. So if you have had a heart attack, if you've had a bypass surgery, if you've had angioplasty or stent placement, you're eligible for this program. And most of the patients are Medicare, and Medicare pays for 3 months of classes.
So does physical therapists have anything to do with this?
They can, but our model is probably not going to include physical therapy.
We have the exercise physiologist and nurses, so it's just a little different.
Do we have the means to reach out to the general public who have needed it in the past, but was not able to get it?
We will do that, but I don't want to do that till I have a firm date.
Right.
So right now, we're trying to juggle several things. One of those things is the training involved for the nurse, because we haven't had this, so it isn't anything she's ever been able to see or learn, so she's having to learn from other facilities. So she's going out for training and observation, and that's been a little slower than I had hoped. They haven't been as quick to respond to our phone calls as I had hoped. So it's taking a lot of phone calls.
So it's not really an increase in staffing, it's additional training.
Well, yeah, because a nurse is being pulled away from the bedside, and now, so it's a half an FTE of a nurse, and less than a half of an FTE of an exercise physiologist. So, so it is an increase. But actually, it's been budgeted for a couple of years, and I'm just finally getting it done, so.
Good service. I'll go in for my EKG tomorrow for my pre-op,
Oh, okay.
so I may need it.
Well, we hope not.
Hopefully not.
Anything else, Teresa?
Those were just the 2 things I wanted to mention.
You filled any new RA positions?
I have not.
Well, hopefully December.
Yeah, I'm hopeful too. I haven't filled any CNA positions either, so we're still struggling.
CEO report.
So this will be a record speed of a meeting, so just want you to know that we don't want to spend a lot of your time. But I have a couple of really positive things to talk about. In October, we talked about how we got a grant to help us do some development of a need that is in this community. It's not just us, but all over, not only the state of Oregon, but the United States, and that is for supportive housing. Supportive housing is the housing for people that have been in need of mental health services, behavioral health services, and need to be in a safe environment so that they are sometimes protected from their addictions or other kinds of problems. So that's what supportive housing is. So we got a grant initially for $21,000 to develop some knowledge about how to put this together. I'm very pleased to say that the Mayor's Memorial Trust, that first trust came from Oregon Housing Community Services Organization. We received notice this week that the Mayor's Memorial Trust gave us $185,000 for the next 2 years. Of that, to send several people to learn more about this and to develop the infrastructure and the processes. It doesn't cover the building itself. That could be multiple $1 million. But this is to help us build the infrastructure and networks within Lake County and Lake. That's a pretty exciting.
So have you picked somebody or
So
had somebody apply?
yes, at present, one of the options that we're pursuing is that the McGarvis that own the Lakeview Lockers, they're looking to convert that into a supportive housing facility. And so they and several other designated people are going to be going to learn how it might, not necessarily the technical parts of changing that building, but rather how does a program like that work? And what kind of staff, and what kinds of requirements go into that?
So if you send them, are they obligated to come back to us to tell us what they've learned or to teach others here?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because they're not connected with the hospital in any manner.
No, they are the individuals that have put up, they're treated as the development. And then we have another group of people that are associated with the hospital to specifically, oh yes, there's 7 or 8 people that are going to these multiple trainings. And part of the program that they had to sign up for was, we promised that we will go to all 3 of the trainings, or all 4, whatever that is. And then, if we elect not to do this, we pass on that information to the others. But the people that are employed by the district or work with the district as partners, they're interested in, it's hard to know if any one project will work. We want to see where it goes. So there's a lot of learning on it. So that's really exciting. Constantly, we are training people within our hospital to get better at what they're doing. And pleased to say that in our radiology department, Mike Horn, one of our radiology techs, received his certification in CT, CAT scan. So now we have multiple people that are able to run the CT scanner. So just because you're trained in radiology, you may not be trained in all aspects of the equipment. So this is, again, an added benefit to our community and to the service that we're able to offer in the radiology department.
So who's our radiologist that reads these?
So we contract with a company called CORA, Central Oregon Radiology Associates.
And
They're out of Bend. There's 23 doctors. They are all fellowship trained. So let me explain it how that works. The person goes to go to college for 4 years, medical school 4 years. They do a residency in radiology 3 years. Then they do a 1 to 2 year fellowship. And they may do a fellowship in just MRI, or just in breast, or just in different portions of the anatomy or different tools. So there's 23 of those positions. Central Oregon Radiology Group provides services to Bend, Redmond, Madras, Prineville, John Day, Burns, and to Lake. So they read for all of those hospitals. So anytime an X-ray is taken or any radiological images are obtained, remember they're not X-rays like we imagine. You get that film, it's all digital. So it goes to Bend or wherever they are, and they read that and we get the report.
Is that 24 hours a day, or do you still use hospital?
So we contract with CORE to provide it 24 hours a day. They contract with an organization that predominantly is based in Australia. There are many organizations that U.S. hospitals contract or physician groups because when it's night for us, it's day in Australia or New Zealand or other areas. So it's often the company is called Nighthawk. The one we work with, I think is
No, that used to be, it's STAT right now.
No, it's Stat.
And their corporate headquarters are based in Poway, California.
But they contract with different
But
groups.
they're all over.
And these have become very, very large medical groups that provide these specialty services. So it's a really good service. And we have brought issue to the group in the past. Do we get a response quicker. Late in the night, if you are waiting on an interpretation, and the doctor needs it because it's an emergency, you don't want to wait, every second counts. They actually did an analysis and we got a better response rate for our films than some of the other hospitals did. So they're well aware of issues and sometimes there's computer problems. It's a variety of things, but good service.
But we have full broadband internet capacity to shield the images
We do.
without any feedback.
And we monitor that. The companies that we use track the number of times it isn't working properly and the seconds or the sections of seconds that are problems. So it's a pretty robust process. And there are times that things don't work right. And so we track it and try to stay on top.
My truck didn't work last weekend
I beg your pardon?
either. I said my truck didn't work last weekend
Yeah, we want to rely on fast internet for healthcare services. Sorry about your trip.
either.
Want to remind everyone that next Friday is our annual Christmas party at the Elks, and please plan. I think 5:30 is when cocktails are started, and then for those that want wish cocktails, and then 6:30 is when we start dinner. So hopefully we'll see you there. Pleased to say that we have hired a director for long-term care. Her name is Robin Robbins. She goes by Rob. Some of you have met her. She's not fully in the position just yet, even though she's applied a long time ago for her Oregon license. Her Oregon nursing license still hasn't been approved.
What's the last name?
Robbins.
Last name is Robbins.
First name is Rob, R-O-B.
Last name?
Robbins.
Rob.
Rob. Now, I don't know about the rocket but she comes to us from Iowa and a lot of experience, so we're excited about that. I'm hopefully able to say shortly that we have hired a human resources director. So not everything's all buttoned up, but pretty darn close. I'll announce that when we have that result. We still don't have a clinics director, but we're doing interviews. So, other than that, we have several physicians that we have been interviewing. We've interviewed several primary care physicians. We have contracts almost completed with 2 orthopedic surgeons. We are in discussions with GYN. We hope to have a dermatologist in February. So it's been busy in terms of that. And I'll tell you as I know, and I see not just the signatures, but the whites of their eyes, that they actually show up, that things are going on. We will start Dr. Walker Wincoop next week. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and he'll be here for a week. And then the other physician is Dr. McGillicuddy, and they're kind of swapped back and forth, week on, week off. Each has different skills, but they are both very accomplished orthopedic surgeons. That's a very big benefit for us. Any questions that I might be able to answer?
Can we keep busy?
I beg your pardon?
Can we keep them both busy?
We're going to work at that. When we had Dr. Skrinsky here first, it took a little bit of ramp up time, but she delivered some very competent service. So what we found when she was here is we worked out a lot of bugs that to make the process move smoothly. One of her concerns was if she wasn't here, what would happen with her patients? So by having another surgeon to work together with them, that will enhance their service. We still have the services from the Climate Orthopedic Group that comes here. And they've been wonderful for our community for many, many years. But oftentimes they take their cases to Climate Falls, and that's an inconvenience for our community. this is to try and keep that service here in Lincoln. If you have any questions, that's, is my comments.
Anything else for our general session?
I have one question. Can you explain this?
So the legacy system on this farm would be CPSI,
Which is the system?
which is the system you have now. And then, of course, you have CERN. So what they're saying is that your accounts receivable, what you should project to collect on your AR in month one would be 80 or 90% out of, is gonna come out of your AR that's due out of your legacy system, and only 1 or 2% of what you bill out of Cerner. And so on and so on. So in the second month, you're gonna collect 50 to 60% of your AR that's left in your legacy system. You're not billing anymore in there, but you still have an AR balance to collect. And then 10 to 25% of what you billed out of Cerner that month. So they give this as historical data that pertains to critical access hospitals, small hospitals. They've collected they are on a monthly basis collecting a lot of statistics from us as far as what is our days in cash, what is our days in AR. I can't remember what else, but we're working on, I know you're working on the workbook, but so they want to be well understanding where we are as we're going into this implementation. And one of their pledges is that their implementation team will stay working with you really hard on that AR, on your revenue cycle, until you get back to where you were before you started the implementation.
So if I understand what they're saying though, that month 3 is probably going to be
The
the
most
most challenging month
Yeah,
as far as effective cash flow.
yes, right.
And then they're saying what they've seen in other hospitals is usually by month 5 or 6 you're back where you were.
Yep.
That's what this says.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's their target, that's what they've experienced. So their goal is to make us good enough to be able to have that happen. And so there's lots of preparation to get there. And then once we start with change,
These assumptions are not in this.
Yeah, they are.
So we have our cash dropping.
Yeah.
June by,
I shorted you page 2, I'm sorry, I'll go get that for you. There's a whole page missing.
okay.
Staff come back to Kansas City and return.
Yes, 23 people went to Kansas City. They had a huge amount of learning, it was extremely successful, they came back very enthusiastic. And I think it continues to be a good experience for us. We're certainly finding some challenges and things that we have to work out, but it's honestly been a good experience, I think, for bringing all those different groups of people together and talking about how is it going to work and how do we want it to work, and doing a little bit of arguing and a little bit of compromising. But yes, it was a very, very good experience. They were happy.
But there'll be continued training, most of that will be telecommunication.
Yeah. Well, there's online training and so they came back to train other people. So now we'll begin training the other people in the departments. Those trainers, they will continue to learn. And I don't, if I don't
They'll
say
be
something wrong, we're gonna have
They'll
the,
be on site for some of the training. though.
right, like
And they'll
next
be on
week.
site when we go by.
Oh, yeah, tons and
And
tons.
they'll be on site for physician training.
But like the, what they call the,
Trainers.
training platform, not the real one, but
The build environment.
the build environment, so that lots of people could go in and see our data, our numbers, and maybe learn to run reports or learn how to register a patient or whatever it is you're going to do. So there's online tutorials, there's people that teach you, there's an environment to play in. And they said we should have contests and, you know, like whoever, maybe get a prize for being the person who, maybe,
Like walk the most hours
Walk the
in
most
that built
hours, or-
environment.
achieve the most successful thing. You can do tests and say, hey, have I learned this well enough? They have a little test for you to take. So, the sooner you can check all of those things off, the more that person is prepared for go line. They are coming out next week with, next week is on-site train the trainer for doctors. So they come out here and work with the doctors, and I think
Well, it's actually the trainers, they're supposed to be training the
I know.
trainers for the doctors, but our doctors all wanna
I
go,
wanna go.
so they're gonna be there too.
Yeah,
So,
Dr. Foster is is currently in Kansas City, or returning today. He's been there this week
Having
to
a good time.
become the advocate for the medical staff and to try and be as knowledgeable as he can. They all are anticipating change, and it's anxious, but the more that you can become better at this, you don't want it to impact patient care. So everyone must be prepared.
Foster had an extremely positive experience this week. He is very pumped and excited about CERN.
Yeah, he went out there early, it was for a conference, but he actually went out, I flew him out Sunday, or he got there Monday, and he went with his computer, his order sets, he sat down with Cerner, and he was able to get that one-on-one with them, which is what he was really wanting. So he did that for Monday and Tuesday before he rolled into the conference with the other physicians. So.
Don't turn off the cell phones, bring cookies and coffee recipes.
Any other,
General session.
nothing that I have for general session.
You gotta read a thing for
I
executive
have
session.
2 items for executive session. They would be for 192